Oh, no, I don't like lists. No, literature is too valuable to rank. Even rating it just feels. Hi, welcome back. My name is Derek Main. I review translated literature. Welcome to my channel. So, today, I'm going to do my 10 favorite reads of 2019 because that is something that I should do. And I have put them in order, but they're in order of my favorites. They're not in order of the best. One thing about reading that you kind of have to accept one day, and it's very hard to accept, is that most likely you have not even read, maybe not even heard of, the best book that year. There's always something on your TBR shelf that's better and will blow your mind, even bigger than that first time that you got caught up in the love affair of literature or translated literature. There's always something that one person mentioned on a Twitter feed, or there was one review that you just kind of skipped over that was just written for you and you only. And so we'll miss all those, and we'll just go with my 10 favorite. So first, I'm going to do an honorable mention because I'm doing this on December 17th. There's 13 or 14 reading days left. In fact, some really good reading days because I don't have work. And it's Christmas time, so while the kids are playing with all their stuff, I can sit on the couch and read. So most likely, something that I'll read would make this list for 2019, but actually we'll move it into 2020, and we'll just pretend the year ends now. Because of that, though, I have to mention an honorable mention. Came out last year, The Invented Part by Rodrigo Fresson, translated from the Spanish by Will Vander Heyden. I'm going with that. And from Open Letter. And the reason I'm reading this is it's the first in the trilogy. The second part of the trilogy, the Dreamed Part, comes out in January, and they're going to do a 2-month review podcast on it, which they did with this. Actually, that's how they launched the 2-month review, was with this podcast. And so I went back and I've been rereading it as I listen to the podcast. And then I'm going to do the same in real time with the Dreamed Part. And I'll actually do a review of the Dreamed Part when I'm all finished with it. But I won't do a review of the Invented Part. I will just say that it will probably, if it was in this list here, slip in at about 4 or 5. Because I love this kind of writing. Maximalist, way too much, sort of pension, lots of asides and referential, but ultimately about death, middle age, and in this case, a lot about children and parents. And also, of course, one of my favorite topics, about literature itself. So, honorable mention, because I'm reading it right now. I have one more section to go, and it would have made my list. But it had the misfortune of being read in early December, or mid-December. So a couple of stats about my list. Let's start off with the bad stat. 7 men and 3 women. So I looked through what all I read this year. 30% looks about right. And I have to say that up front and out there, that I need to do better about that. I need to read more women in translation throughout the year, and my numbers need to go up on that. I think 2 of the 3 are in the top 5. So it's not that I'm not enjoying it, it's that I'm not putting it as a priority the way I need to. For countries, 2 countries show up twice, although one of those countries, it's kind of debatable if that really is how we should count it, but that's how we'll count it. So 2 Chilean and 2 French. The French surprised me because normally I'm kind of on French books. No Russian this year, which surprised me. I love Russian books. Nothing from Africa, which I need to work on. And where else am I missing? Well, I mean, there's a whole world, so I'm missing a lot. But 2 from France, 2 from Chile, and then we've got South Korea, Portugal, Hungary, Japan, Iceland, and Colombia. Publishers, the last little stat before we get to this 10. New Directions has a whopping 4 of the 10, 40% from New Directions. And really, I don't know how much that should surprise. They put out a lot of books, a lot of translated literature. I mean, I think they're probably in America the top translated literature publisher. They're sort of that indie publisher that borders on, are they really indie? You know, kind of like Merge Records or something like that here in America. where they're so popular that you kind of question it. But question whether they're indie. You don't question whether they're good. They're great. But that amount of books kind of just makes it to where a lot are going to show up on your list. And I've tried, I would say 4 years ago, New Directions made up 80% because I was really just kind of reading their catalog. And it wasn't until I found the smaller publishers and stuff that I opened up an even broader world that's really enhanced my reading. And I've talked about that a lot. Another one that gets multiples, only one other publisher gets multiples, Deep Vellum out of Dallas, Texas, has 2 books on the list. Then we have FSG Originals with 1, Open Letter from the University of Rochester with 1, Grey Wolf Press with 1, and Charco Press with 1. So, pretty good representation there. Of these, I have done a YouTube review of 6 of the 10. So, the way that I'm going to structure this, I'm not going to review every single book. I have written some pithy little things down as if this was a gift-giving guide to let you know which one of your friends I would recommend you get this particular book as a Christmas present. Now, I am not trying to be offensive or whatever, but I am trying to be funny and pithy. So there's that. Don't take it too seriously. For the 6 or 4. 1, 2, 3. For the however many that I didn't review on my channel, I'll just make a few quick notes about what they are. For the ones I did review, I encourage you to read my reviews. I talk about them a lot. So number 10, without further ado, Vaseline Buddha by Young Moon. Translated from the Korean by Yewon Young. And this is Deep Vellum, one of their first 2 on here. This is stream of consciousness, stream of subconsciousness. This is an absolute tour de force of internal writing. Maybe auto writing, I don't think so, but definitely internal writing as the writer goes deep into his psyche to try to find Zen or literature or anyway, it's really good. And I wrote down, this is for your friend. This is your gift-giving guide. This is for your friend whose mind wanders constantly, who thinks too much, who enjoys getting lost, who doesn't need a map. I should add, who doesn't need a plot, because who needs a plot? That's number 10. Number 9, I reviewed Vernon Subutex by Virginie Despentes, translated from the French by, I think this is one where you have to go to that front page. I don't love that. Frank Wynn. And this is FSG Originals. I liked this book. Obviously, it's number 9. I've already done a review. I'm not going to review it. This one for your gift-giving guide is obviously for your ex-scenester friends, those folks who are in the clubs and in the music scene. Also fans of desperate characters and character building, because you're going to get a lot of characters and a lot of character building. And we'll talk about this actually in just a second. At the end of this review, we'll kind of come back to it in its own way. All right, number 8, a recent review. The Translator's Bride by Yohei Reis, translated from the Portuguese by the author. This is our open letter book. I love this book so much and it cracks me up. Read my review. For your friend who's constantly bemused, put upon, constantly, mostly riding public transportation, regularly owed and owing lots of money. Has lots of debts, but also needs to get some of that money as well. That's Translator's Bride. That's who should get that one. Number 7, I did not review. It's an earlier read from this year. Tell Them of Battles, Kings, and Elephants by Matthias Enard, translated from the French by Charlotte Mandel, one of the best translators going. And this is a New Direction. So is this our first? Yes, this is our first of the 4 New Directions. Since I didn't review it, let me just say really briefly. I love this book. I think it puts a magical spell over a reader, and I don't use that lightly because I know how kind of cliche that is. But you are going to go to, to Constantinople, and Michelangelo, a young but already renowned sculptor, and he is going to try to build a bridge there for the Sultan of Constantinople. And he has Nemesis coming. He has the mix of the 2 different cultures and just a ton of wonderful stuff about architecture, art, and all invented, of course, like what it might have been to be him in that moment, but also to be those cultures in that moment. And since I read so much translated literature, and that's so much of what I'm interested in, going back way in the past to 1500 to see the way that cultures that first started to kind of come together would actually have a clash was very fascinating. So this is for fans of architecture, painting, fine cheeses, and wines, because it does have a little bit of that, right? All right, is it 6? 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6, a book not published this year. Not all of them are. It's just when I read them. I had not read this one before. Roberto Bolaño's Distant Star. Translated from the Spanish by Chris Andrews, and this is A New Directions. We're actually going on a little bit of a New Directions run here. And just like a lot of Bolaño, this I think belongs in the top sort of 5 of his work. I love it. I had just somehow missed it, and actually on a podcast I heard someone mention it as their favorite, and I thought, well, I need to read that. It doesn't best 2666 for me, which to me of the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years is probably the best book that I've personally read, at least the way I think of it. But maybe it goes ahead of Savage Detectives. It does not go above Third Reich for me, which is a minor piece, some people feel like, but I think is an absolute masterpiece, and I encourage you to read. I'm not even sure a Little Lumpada novel. That one might be better too. But this is absolutely a tremendous book and scary, and it has to do with Pinochet regime. Actually, we have another book coming up later, a little higher ranked, that will also delve into that. I told you there was 2 Chilean. This is the one where I said, do I count Chilean? But for this one, I think we say Chile because that is absolutely a big part of it. It's somebody who's launching his own version of New Chilean poetry, included with airplanes that do the sky thing, where it says like buy Geico insurance, except, well, this does stuff like that. This is for your friend who's into noir and sleeps every day until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I told you it wasn't too serious. We are on New Directions runs. I just realized that all 4 of the New Directions are boom, 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 boom. So, number 5, is that right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can't count. This isn't a math vlog. Number 5, Baron von Weinkheim's Homecoming by Laszlo Krasznahorkari, translated from the Hungary by Attili Muslet. Again, New Directions, the first book that I started my channel on. So if you want to see me with using the Max camera as opposed to like buying a $10 OK webcam to make me look a little better, and read this see this review the very first time that I did it, there you go. It's there. I won't go into it anymore. This is for fans, for your gift-giving guide. Your friend who loves mythology and has read the Bible for its literary value, likes the idea of riding on trains throughout Europe. Yeah, that's who you're going to get that for. Number 4, our last of the New Directions, The Factory, by Hiroko Oyamada, translated from the Japanese by David Boyd. Again, last of the New Directions. Another one that we have a review up, so go check it out. This is for, of course, your friend that works 2 to 3 jobs and is always worked to the bone, and maybe a fan of birds. Bird lover in your life. Number 3, for 8 months out of the year, I thought this would be number 1. This is the second deep vellum one, Orafi, The Wasteland, by Ofigur Sigurdsson. So there's no way, right, that I'm going to translate it from the Icelandic by Lytton Smith. This book is crazy. All right, I didn't review it, so just really quickly. I mean, a guy who is into his study is in the naming of things, goes to this area called the Wasteland in Iceland where like nothing grows, there's nothing there, it's so desolate. He comes out having been attacked by some kind of wolf or animal, missing limbs and bloodied, basically unconscious, and who comes to save him but a veterinarian in this local town, who then ends up using this experience to tell the story and to write a manual / novel / history of the region, also honoring him with the naming of things. It is crazy, and it is so weird and so much fun. This is a perfect example of why I love this kind of literature. And I wrote down that this is for your friend who is missing. Your friend who is missing. Your friend who is batshit, just gone. Shows up in your life unannounced, though, with stories and missing a few limbs, also for veterinarians. So, Gidget, next time I take you to the veterinarian to get your little shots, we're going to take this book and we'll gift it to her. We'll see if she likes it. We'll see how accurate the portrayal is. All right, we're getting down to the last two. Number 2, the next Chilean one. The other one connected to the Pinochet regime. Space Invaders. By Nora Fernandez, translated from the Spanish by Natasha Weimer, one of our finest. And Grey Wolf Press. Another one I reviewed, so I won't go too deep into, other than I do just now notice that my top 2 are both incredibly sad books, which, okay. Actually, yeah, I guess they're the 2 saddest I read this year, too. Maybe it's the mood I'm in. So Space Invaders is for your friend who wonders out loud, your conservative friend, who wonders out loud if America might do something to help those poor countries. Let's find out if they can name it. And number 1, my favorite book that I read this year is, it's not a coincidence, it's not recency bias, and I know, that's why I started off this whole thing, like, do I really have to do this? Because I don't want to be judged. An Orphan World by Giuseppe Caputo, translated by Juana Adcock and Sophie Hughes from Charco Press. It was my favorite book this year. As soon as I closed it, there was no doubt about it. Please watch my review if you have a moment, if you want to learn more about it. But this is for fans of theater, since I decided, like unilaterally, that it needed to be a play. Who finds elegance and beauty in abject horror, the kind of person who laughs during the sad scenes. I love this book. Okay. The next book I'm going to review, I told you we were going to get back in a minute to Vernon Subutex, and that's because my next review is going to be Vernon Subutex 2 by Virginie Despentes. And the first thing you will notice is that Vernon Subutex 1 made a top 10 favorite book list. What was it, 9 or 8? It was one of those. But 2 did not. There's a reason for that. And I can review this book without spoiling 1, although it would be a little better if you'd read it, but that's okay. And a little better just because for you would enjoy reading 1. But I can review it without spoiling 1, without spoiling 2, while giving my critical analysis of this book, and that's what we're going to do next. Thanks so much. I hope everybody is having a happy holidays, wherever you are and whatever that means to you. Truthfully, here in America, I think that being a non-religious person, what it actually means is time that everyone has to, thankfully, not work and just be together. And so the kids are not in school. My wife and I are both out of work. Our friends and family, they're all out of work. It just kind of forces you to be together. And I love cooking, and I love a crowded house, and I love the sounds of that. And I love sitting on the couch and reading amongst a cacophony of kids' laughter and grandparents snoring, and there being some football game that I care nothing about on TV. And I like that energy, and so I'm looking forward to that, and I hope whatever your traditions are, you are as well. Thanks again. I'll see you soon. Be good to folks.